This video is going to show your test review with the entire thing worked out problem by problem so that when you finish your own test review, you may go back and compare your answers to mine and see the work that I have done for each problem in hopes of finding your mistakes and in a hope of not repeating the same mistakes on the test. For number 1, you need to subtract 21 from both sides. That leaves you with negative 45 equals negative p. Remember, you cannot have a negative variable, so there's still one step left, and there's a negative 1 there. So we need to divide by negative 1 to make that negative sign go away. So your final answer should be p equals positive 45. For number 2, this is a fraction, and anytime we have fractions, we want to get rid of the denominator. So if we multiply the entire equation by 6, that cancels off the denominator on the left. You have x minus 9. Don't forget to multiply the right side by 6 as well, and that gives you 12. Add your 9 to both sides, and you should end up with x equals 21. For number 3, unless you are comfortable with working with the fractions as fractions, we highly advise to get rid of them. So that's what I'm going to show you how to do. You would multiply both sides by 6, because that is the common denominator for both. And we want to make sure that our answers come out using the 6. Half of 6 turns into 3, so we get 3x. It takes 2 groups of 3 to get to 6, so multiply the top by 2. That'll give you a minus 4. And then the 6 on the right cancels the 6 out. So you have equals 1. You're at a normal 2-step problem from here. Add your 4 to both sides. Now you have 3x equals 5. You're going to divide both sides by 3. 3 does not divide into 5, so you're going to leave it as a fraction. And the answer should be 5/3. For number 4, you want to distribute first. So your first step should say 3x minus 8 minus 3x equals 8. Combine like terms on the left. 3x minus 3x makes 0, so they cancel each other out, and you're left with negative 8 equals 8. This is a special case because there are no variables left, and this is what would be known as a no solution equation. You physically have to write the words no solution. For number 5, you want to start off by distributing to everybody. So after we distribute on both sides, your first step should say 12x minus 18 equals negative 24 plus 12x minus 13. Okay. Then you'll notice on the right-hand side you need to combine like terms. So our next step says 12x minus 18 is going to equal 12x minus 37, because we're combining the negative 24 with the negative 13. Okay, you're going to need to move your variables because you have variables on both sides. They happen to be the same number, so we'll just subtract 12x from both sides. And you'll notice that in this case, both x's disappear and cancel out, so you're left with negative 18 equals negative 37. This is again a special case, and because the numbers are different, it is once again a no solution equation. When the two numbers are the same, you call it an identity, but in both of these cases, the two numbers were different. For number 6, right, this is a proportion. You have got to train yourself to recognize when it looks like a proportion just versus a regular equation. Right? So to solve this, we're going to use our cross multiplication. Okay? So we're going to take and do 6 times y to get 6y equals, now go the other direction, so 10 parentheses 32 minus y, and now we're going to distribute and solve it. Okay, so our next step says 6y equals 320 minus 10y. You have variables on both sides. Our smallest variable is the negative 10, so we're going to add 10y to the other side. Okay, that's going to leave us with the problem of 16y equals 320. Divide by 16 on both sides, and you should get for an answer y equals 20. Right, please recognize when it looks like two fractions with an equal sign stuck in between them that you can do them like a proportion, because most likely that's what it is. Right, so you've got to be aware of that as you go through and take the test. Right. For 7, 8, and 9, these are solving for those specific letters that everybody loves. Right, so remember to circle the letter that you want to keep and make sure everything else goes away. So I want to keep the h in number 7, so I'm going to make the 1/2 go away first. And just like we would in any problem, to make a fraction go away, you want to multiply by the denominator. So I'm going to multiply everything in this equation by the number 2. Okay, so 2 times a is going to leave you with 2a. 1/2 times 2 cancels off the 1/2 altogether, and you're left with b times h. We want the h to stay and the b to go. So in order to separate them, we want to divide by b on both sides. So your final answer says h equals 2 capital A divided by little b. Right? And that problem is done. For number 8, we want the x to stay, so we're going to have to get rid of the c first. The way we do that is by adding c to both sides. So now you're looking at ax equals b plus c. Okay, now there's two ways to write this for the last step. You're going to have to divide by a, and in class I told you to make sure you divide each little piece by a. So that's one possible right way to write the answer. Right? So I'm going to write both of them up here so you can see the difference, even though both of them would give you full credit. X equals b over a plus c over a. If you divide everybody by a, that's what you're looking at as an answer. But there is another way that is still acceptable. You can write x equals b plus c all divided by a. And the reason that this is allowed is because there's nothing to simplify. So when there's nothing to simplify, either one of those is worth your full credit. For number 9, you want to get the b by itself. In order to do that, you've got to get rid of the 2 on the bottom. So once again, because it's a fraction, we're going to multiply both sides by 2. The 2 on the outside of the left cancels the 2 off the bottom. So now you've got 3b minus 4 equals 2 times c, which is 2c. To get the b by itself, we want to add 4 to both sides. Right? So now we're looking at 3b equals 2c plus 4. Okay, we need to get rid of the 3. So once again, you can divide every little piece by 3 and look to see if anything simplifies. Right? You can write it b equals 2c over 3 plus 4 over 3. That's one acceptable way, and that's perfectly fine. Or because nothing's simplified, the other possible way you could write it is b equals 2c plus 4 all divided by 3. It's when that bottom number can simplify the top number that you really have to watch out and be cautious of it. If you're trying to make sure you always get these right, err on the side of caution and write it under everything. Right? It's a little safer that way. All right, for number 10, right, you have a word problem like we did in class, okay, that deals with perimeter of a shape. So draw yourself a picture and then label your picture to help you get your equation set up in the first place. Okay, so we are dealing with a rectangle, and it tells you that the length of the rectangle is 4w plus 5. So label the length as 4w plus 5. The width is w minus 4. And the rectangle opposite sides are the same measurement, so label the other two sides. Okay, and with perimeter, you are walking all the way around the shape, so you need to add up all 4 sides together. And we do this by combining like terms. So if you start in your shape with the like terms, you have 4w plus 4w plus w. That makes 10w. Then go to your constants. You have a positive 5, a negative 4, and a negative 4. Okay, so that's positive 2. And all of that equals the perimeter they gave you in the problem of 82. So you just generated that equation. Now you can solve it like a normal 2-step problem that we've been doing. Subtract your 2 from both sides, and you're going to end up with 10w equals 80. Divide by 10. And because the question was asking you for the value of w, our value in this case is w equals 8. If you want to put the word feet in there because that's what it was being measured in, you certainly can, but it really didn't ask for that. It just asked for the value of w, and we've satisfied that answer. All right, going to number 11. 11's got a 2-part piece to it. The first part is asking you to take the equation that's already in the problem and solve it for the letter x. So it's just like number 7, 8, and 9 were. So if I take the equation c equals 40 plus 5x, in order to get the x by itself, I'm going to subtract 40 on both sides. So now I've got c minus 40 equals 5x. Right? And in this case, you want to divide every little piece by 5 because part of this is going to simplify. Right? So your final answer for part A is x equals c divided by 5 minus 8. Because that 40 divided by 5 turned into an 8. You have to simplify if necessary. If not necessary, then you leave it as it is. Now you can use your answer to letter A to help you with letter B, or you can go back to the original. I'm going to show you both ways. If you use your answer to letter A, right, they're telling you the cost is $290. That's going to go in the C spot, and you're trying to find x. So using what you already wrote, you would say x equals 290 over 5 minus 8. Okay, and then you would follow order of operations. Order of operations says to divide first. Right? So 290 divided by 5 gives you 58. You would subtract 8, and you would find out that x is going to equal 50. And it's asking us for how many classes, so our answer is 50 classes. Now, if you're afraid that your answer to letter A is wrong, and you don't want to use that for fear of getting letter B wrong, then go back to the original equation, which was c equals 40 plus 5x, and replace the c with the 290. And then you're just going to be solving a normal two-step equation that you should be very comfortable with. Subtract your 40. 290 minus 40 is 250, equals 5x. Divide by 5. And once again, you're going to get the same result of 50 classes. So you have two ways to get the same answer. It just depends on your confidence in part A to help you get to part B. Okay. For 12 and 13, we're back to solving just normal equations of different types. Right. For number 12, leave the fraction there. If you really want to get rid of it, you can, but I'm going to work this one out with it staying just because it's not that bad to handle. Add the 1 to the other side. So now you've got 3 over 7x equals 9. The way we get rid of a fraction in front of a letter is to multiply by the reciprocal. So multiply both sides by 7 over 3. And that makes the fraction go away in front of the x. Now you have x equals. Over here, put a 1 under the 9. 3 turns into 1, 9 turns into 3. 3 times 7 gives you 21. If you got rid of the fractions from the beginning, you should also still get 21. Number 13, you want to distribute to both sides and then move your variables. So after distributing, you have 7g minus 14 equals 5g plus 20. Okay, the smaller one to move is the 5g, so subtract 5g from both sides. So now you're looking at 2g minus 14 equals 20. Add your 14 over, and that leaves you with 2g equals 34. Divide by 2, and you should be able to get g equals 17 off of this one. All right, number 14, okay, distribute first. So you end up with 7x minus 70 equals 21. You're at a two-step equation. Add your 70. So now you've got 7x equals 91. Divide by 7. And x is going to equal 13. For number 15, if you haven't already recognized it, this is another proportion. You cannot solve it any other way other than using cross multiplication. Right? So we want to make sure that you know how to do that. Right? So we're going to take 4 times 7x plus 12 equals 20 times 2x makes 40x. You're going to distribute next, so 28x plus 48 equals 40x. Subtract the 28x because it's the smaller variable to the other side. So now you're looking at 48 equals 12x. Divide by 12 on both sides, and your answer comes out to be 4. For number 16, you're solving for the specific letter that's given. Okay, we're looking for the r, so we want to get rid of the 2, the pi, and the h all at the same time. It's all being held together by multiplication, so in order to get rid of it, we're going to divide both sides. We want to get rid of the 2, the pi, and the h, so that's what we're going to divide by, 2 pi h. Now they're gone, and you're left with the r behind. So the answer is r equals s on top divided by 2 pi h. Okay, 17, you are using the properties listed in the box to justify each step of the equation. Right, so the first one is your given. From the given to step 1, what was happening was the distributive property. You should all recognize that very quickly and easily. Okay. The second thing that was done from step 1 to step 2 was like terms were combined. So this is where, based on what's in our box, we choose combine like terms. In order to get from step 2 to step 3, you can notice that the variables on both sides went away and down to 1, so they subtracted 5x from both sides to get the next step, and that's what is known as the subtraction property of equality. Because remember, if you do the same operation on each side, it's that of equality mess. Okay. From step 3 to step 4, in order to get to 5x equals 15, you had to add 6 to both sides. Right? So that would be your addition property of equality. And then to get from step 4 to step 5, you had to divide by 5, which would be your division property of equality. So you will have one of these on the test where you have to justify each step using a property name from the box given. Right. For 18, 19, and 20, you are asked to do two things. You're asked to write and solve a proportion. So if you're missing either part of that, then your answer is not necessarily going to be counted as 100% correct. So for number 18, the scale is always our first part of our ratio. So we're doing centimeters over miles, right, which would give us 2 over 120. And that equals, notice the 2.6 is centimeters, so it's going to go up top where the centimeters go, and x is going to go on the bottom. Now you're going to cross multiply, and you end up with 2x equals 312. Divide by 2, and you should have gotten for your answer x equals 156. Don't stop there though. Remember, you have to go back and provide units. I need to know what that 156 is referring to, and in our case, it's referring to the number of miles. For number 19, I see a percent sign in my problem, so immediately the first proportion that comes to mind is the percent proportion, right? So when we go ahead and do this, remember it's your is over of equals percent over 100. I see my percent, so that's 75 over 100, but I need to figure out my is and my of. All right, if you keep reading, it says that there are 35 questions on the test. How many does she need to answer correctly? 35 is the total. Total amounts always go on the bottom. You're trying to figure out what part of those 35 does she have to answer right to pass. All right, so here's your proportion. Cross multiply, you have 100x equals 2,625. Divide by 100, and you get x equals 26.25. Now here's where common sense comes into play. You can't have 0.25 of a question. You either get it right or you get it wrong. So in order for her to safely pass this test, she can't just answer 26 because she technically hasn't gotten past the score. She needs to round it up, and she needs to safely get 27 questions right, or she is not going to pass that test. Right? Being just under the cut score is not enough to pass. You have to be over the cut score or right at it, right? So the correct answer is 27 questions based on that decimal. Okay? And then the last one that we have to do, or that was on your review sheet, is just dealing with ratios, and it's asking you to deal with the ratio of goalies to the total number of players on a team. So you're dealing with the number of goalies over the total on the team. So when you're reading your first ratio, it says 2 to 30. The first number is the number of goalies, so that'd be 2. The 30 is the total, so 2 to 30. But then it's telling you that the league has 915 players, so how many goalies are there? Well, the goalies is missing, so that's where the X goes. 915 is the total amount of players, so that's your of. Okay, so now we want to take and figure out how many goalies there is. Doing your cross multiplying, you end up with 30x equals 1,830. Divide by 30, and you end up with x equals 61. Now don't stop there and just leave me with 61. The question was asking about the number of goalies. You need to say 61 goalies. Okay, so hopefully through all of these problems worked out and the work shown to you, you have a better understanding about what your mistakes were so that you aren't likely to repeat them on the test. Okay, so use this to study off of and prepare for the test, and good luck to you when you actually take the test once you get into class.